Hello and welcome to the Amateur Austenite. My name is Frances Duncan. I am an author and the founder of the Jane Austen Society of New Zealand. My special guest today, as always, is my sister Paula.
Hi.
She said hi instead of hello to try and be different.
I did. Probably because I'm also going to try and be different and not say this chapter is funny because it's not.
Today we're going to be discussing chapter 42 of Pride and Prejudice. In chapter 42, Lizzie starts her travels with the Gardiners. So go ahead, what you were saying before.
Well, before we started recording, I was talking about how boring this chapter is. Like, it's the end of volume 2. I get that, but I don't know, maybe I'm used to things now being cliffhangers or whatever, but I just feel like it's a bit of a nothing chapter. She talks about Mr. Bennet and Mrs. Bennet's marriage and how it is not a great marriage. He'd married a woman whose weak and understanding and illiberal mind had very early in their marriage put an end to all real affection for her. You know, there's all these things that gives us a really awful picture of their marriage, particularly from Mr. Bennet's perspective, and it tells us a little bit about his character. But it's also just a little bit boring. I'm used to Austen being quite funny when she picks apart society, whereas this is a really boring way of picking apart the society. You know, it'd be really nice to see Mrs. Bennet being a bit of an idiot in the way that she speaks to her husband or something, but I don't know, I just found this whole chapter really boring. Sorry.
There aren't many conversations. I wonder if that's why, because you run through a lot of stuff happening, but we're not in one place having a specific conversation with somebody.
That's really true, actually. And because Elizabeth's going on about her father. Well, we assume this is what she's thinking about her father. She had never felt so strongly as now the disadvantages which must attend the children of so unsuitable a marriage. She's obviously thinking some pretty horrible things about her dad and the marriage that he has and the effects, therefore, on the children. Yeah, I guess you're quite right. It is the fact that we're not in one place. We're not really hearing any conversations that are happening. There's just lots of description, I guess, to finish off the chapter to get us ready for the next part of the novel.
There is a big plot twist, though. They're going to Pemberley. That's a huge plot twist. We knew they were going there because we've read this book before. But for a reader, we like, Lizzie's going to the lakes with her aunt and uncle. That's nice. Oh, now she's going to Derbyshire. She's going to Pemberley.
I guess. But at the very end of the chapter, she finds out that the family is not there. So it's like she's going to Pemberley, but he's not there.
She's still going to Pemberley. It's a big deal.
Yeah, but whoopee-doo, he's not there, It's not like, I don't know, the thing that stood out to me the most in the chapter was the Gardiners leaving their 4 children with Jane for a month, the poor woman. And off they go in pursuit of novelty and amusement. And I'm thinking, what a lovely life for them. Off they go. And I guess Jane's going to be helped by servants at home with these 4 children, but wow.
Yeah, I imagine the governess would have stayed as well.
But I guess also being apart from your children for a month would be difficult.
It's a different time, though. They did that so much more easily. Like when people went to town for the season, they wouldn't necessarily take their children. They'd stay at home in their estate, potentially.
Yeah, I guess when you're talking about the upper class, they did spend time away from their children quite a bit. And they did have 2 homes, and it is mentioned in here that people are coming back into the countryside after being in the town. And so those with 2 houses would be able to do that. Very different lifestyle.
It's funny how they refer to London as town when it's a city. I find that I do that. I refer to Wellington as town. I also noted that the start of the chapter is about the Bennets' marriage, the state of the Bennets' marriage, and I wondered whether it was foreshadowing Lydia's marriage, because there's many links between Mrs. Bennet and Lydia. They're both pretty and good-humoured, and that's all they really have to recommend themselves, although Mrs. Bennet has lost her good humour as she's aged. And I highlighted the other part of the sentence. Her father, Mr. Bennet, captivated by youth and beauty, and what appearance of good humour which youth and beauty generally give. Because that same description could be used for Lydia.
Absolutely. except for the comparison, I guess, falls down when you look at Mr. Bennet, because it says he was fond of the country and of books, and from these tastes had arisen his principal enjoyments. And you do wonder what enjoyments Mr. Wickham is going to have later on. Mind you, it's a bit of a spoiler, isn't it, really, that we're doing here? But I'm guessing that people have read the book.
They should have read the book.
Yeah, you should have.
200 years old. Too late for spoilers. Elizabeth had never been blind to the impropriety of her father's behaviour as a husband.
She had always seen it with pain, but respecting his abilities and grateful for his affectionate treatment of herself, she endeavoured to forget what she could not overlook.
This ties in again with what we were saying last week about her being disappointed in him, which is quite sad because they are quite close.
And I guess her disappointment continues as we go through, because he does come back from town later on without Kitty.
Without Lydia?
Exactly. The other one. The other twitty daughter.
Kitty is mentioned, and the militia are referred to as the disturbers of her brain.
Yes, I thought that was a lovely description.
And they think that Lydia will be hardened in all her folly and insurance by the double dangers of a watering place and a camp. So even though Elizabeth had been looking forward to the militia leaving, she found herself... So this is a great bit about Lizzie's philosophy. Yes. An event to which she had looked forward with impatient desire did not, in taking place, bring all the satisfaction she had promised herself. And her tour to the lakes was now the object of her happiest thoughts. But she says, by carrying with me one ceaseless source of regret, which is Jane not coming with her, I may reasonably hope to have all my expectations of pleasure realised. A scheme in which every part promises delight can never be successful.
Yeah, she's quite funny that way, isn't she? And I wonder if that's a personal philosophy of Jane or just something she created for Elizabeth. Jane Austen, that is. Sorry. Or whether something she created for Elizabeth or heard another person say and used that for Elizabeth. Because Elizabeth is quite philosophical, even though she does get led by her feelings sometimes, particularly around Mr. Darcy.
It sounds like something that Jane Bennett would say. That's why I was looking at you oddly when you said Jane.
Oh, I see. Yes, you're quite right.
As soon as she hears that they're going to Derbyshire, she starts thinking about Mr. Darcy. Foreshadowing. Even before she knows that they're going to go to Pemberley, she thinks about him. Wickham's still in the back of her mind as well, because not only does Mrs. Gardiner say, you know, we should go to Pemberley, Wickham passed all his youth there. Mrs. Gardiner has discovered from him that some of her acquaintance still remained in Lambton. And that's part of the reason that they're going to Lambton, so she can catch up with her old friends.
It's interesting, isn't it, that through them they don't find out anything else about Wickham. That could have been another way, I guess, to bring in information.
Now, one thing that really stood out to me in this chapter, even though you found it boring, when Lizzie is thinking about going to Pemberley, and she's really worried about running into Darcy, she thinks that it would be better to speak openly with her aunt. And I wonder, why is she not speaking openly with her aunt when they're such good friends? What do you think?
So that's a good question. I did wonder that myself. And I assumed that it was just that societal thing that we've talked about before, that in those days they played their cards quite close to their chest. And you didn't talk about feelings and, I don't know, I was going to say scandal, but that's not quite right. That makes
you did talk about scandal.
Yeah.
That's why it was scandalous, because it was talked about.
Yeah. You know, you didn't really talk about personal things so much. What do you think? Is that why? I don't know.
I get that she can't talk about Wickham and tell what he did with Miss Darcy, because that would ruin Miss Darcy's reputation, but I feel she could tell her aunt more.
Well, she had that conversation with Jane that we looked at a couple of weeks ago, where Jane said, look, he may have...
repented?
Yeah, where Jane said he may have repented and he may have changed, and so therefore perhaps it wasn't very nice to let people know about Wickham's character, because she could tell the story of him not wanting to be a vicar and all that sort of stuff, and not talk about Georgiana.
She
could talk about that, but she and Jane decided not to, that it would be better not to do that. And I guess, you know, that is being kind. But then why she doesn't explain about Mr. Darcy's proposal, I'm not sure. I do wonder if it's because she's quite embarrassed by it. Embarrassed by the fact that the way he proposed, first of all, so the way he spoke about her family, so she's embarrassed by that.
Because you'd have to tell the whole thing. You couldn't just say he proposed to me, because everyone would say, why didn't you say yes? You have to say, well, here's the awful things he said. But you probably also wouldn't want to spread that about him, because that's not really fair, because she has seen the error of her family's ways and sort of agreed with him.
Absolutely. And then, of course, the letter that he gave her afterwards, explaining a lot of stuff, you know, particularly about Wiccan, really is part of that whole story. And so telling people about that would perhaps be a bit unfair too. Do we do that today? As much as we say that we do say a lot more in 2020 or the 21st century, do we say everything, or are there things that we keep to ourselves to help other people keep their secrets or not to embarrass people? I think there are things that we do keep to ourselves.
I don't think there's things that I keep to myself. I always have to tell somebody.
But then you've got that one confidant, and so for Elizabeth that was Jane.
So she must be bursting now with things that she can't tell, because she couldn't tell Jane about Mr. Bingley.
True. And you'd wonder if she could have told Mrs. Gardiner about that, but then she'd have had to explain, I guess, the whole story. So, yeah, again, I guess from her not saying anything to Mrs. Gardiner, Jane Austen is saying that Elizabeth actually is quite a lovely person and understands her duty to others. I'd just like to say that my son is sitting in the background, and it's quite funny because I don't know if you're going to be able to hear this on the recording, but he keeps going, yeah, because he understands what we're talking about, even though he's 12. I'm very proud of him. He's very clever. He's watched Pride and Prejudice and he's played marrying Mr. Darcy a lot.
Any update on your teaching, Emma?
Well, we're having a lovely time with it, actually. The girls are getting to understand the society of Emma quite a bit. We talked a lot about how they find information today, and then we compared it to what Emma had at her disposal, and so how limited what Emma is in comparison, or was in comparison, to what the girls have today, particularly if they want to learn anything or how they spend their time. And that was really neat that they could see that difference between the two and really understand why Emma is the way she is, because of the society that she grew up in, you know, and as a reflection of the society Jane Austen lived in and had around her. And we've decided we're going to have a tea party.
Which I'm coming to.
Yes.
Can I come to?
And my son just asked if he can come too. Maybe, if you bring your own teacup. Because Autumn de Wilde did a beautiful job of creating the setting. And we found somewhere that she said to her set designer something or other about Emma playing with people, and so they've created what looks like a doll's house for her, with all the beautiful things, all the pastels and all the beautiful teacups and the plates with all the food that they couldn't touch, which, you know, like a doll's house, I guess, you can't eat that food. And the girls were intrigued by all of this, so we've decided that we're going to have a tea party, and that Frances is going to come and perhaps hopefully tell us a little bit more about Austen's time. Frances is now looking horrified by that. But the girls keep saying, when can we have it? But in New Zealand, we have just moved to level 2, which means that anyone who's not of our school community can't come onto the grounds. So we have to wait until after that for Francis to be able to come.
And it'll be a good time when I do.
Exactly. We'll have a lovely time and have cups of tea and, I don't know, little cakes. We might have to be able to eat the cakes, though.
Yes, I think that's necessary.
Yeah, me too.
Eating cakes is necessary. Okay, and that is our summary of chapter 42 and updates on other things. My name is Frances Duncan. You can find me at francesduncanwrites.com and on Twitter at Frances_Duncan. Thank you for listening, and we wish you happy reading.
Postscript for today. So my son has been sitting today and listening to us talk, and we were talking about Mr. Bennet and how he likes to read and be in the countryside, and we were wondering what Mr. Wickham's pursuits will be in the future. And we didn't realise that my son was sitting over there whispering to us, gambling. So we thought we would add that at the end, that yes, perhaps that is what Mr. Wickham will do in the future, is just gamble. And they've started out with very little money, and perhaps they will continue
With very little money.
Yeah.
Right. Thanks, guys.